Welcome back to another episode of the Hotel Fit Show. I'm Leo Amrim, and I'm here to help you improve your physical and mental health around your crazy hospitality schedule. Boom, we're live. And as you guys know, hospitality is considered by many one of the most stressful industries ever. There are simply things here that we can't control and that are quite stressful, such as the market swings. So you either are very overbooked or you have no business at all. You have your staff calling sick right in the days that you most need them. You can find qualified staff these days to work for you, and you are short-staffed quite often. At least most of you guys are, and some of you guys are doing the work that 5 people should be doing. Apart from that, you also deal with complaints, and sometimes these complaints come from people that just complain for the sake of it because they need attention. It's nothing personal, but they want your best suite available. Unfortunately, they booked the standard room in booking.com. And in general, working every day in a fast-paced environment with no weekends off. And some of you guys have kids at home and things to do outside of work and a never-ending to-do list, so it can be tough. But just because the industry that you work in is stressful, it doesn't mean that there's nothing you can do about it. Actually, most people cause it upon themselves to make it even more stressful by making certain mistakes that are very common that lead to overwork and overconcern and overstress. And some of those common mistakes I will address today in this live. Because the worst might not even be the fact that you are being exposed to stress itself, but what happens as a consequence of the amount of stress that you are exposed to, whether the reason has to do with you or not. And it is known that hospitality has a very social component, and that hospitality professionals tend to cope with all of this stress by eating and drinking like fools. And I know that's the case for a lot of you guys here in this group from conversations that we've been having. But to be fair, I had days like that back when it was me, and I understand you. I really do. So I want to know, do you rely on alcohol to cope with the daily stress at work, in hotel, or at the restaurant? Do you rely on processed foods to feel better? And is this behavior causing you to gain weight, to become unhealthy physically and mentally? Do you feel tired? Do you feel like you're lacking energy? Is this causing you that annoying brain fog? And this, if you have all these issues, this can be caused by poor nutrition and the abuse of alcohol that in consequence will lead to dehydration and all kinds of problems, and you feeling mentally drained and constantly in that hangover state. Okay, it also starts a vicious cycle that is dangerous because your brain wires this exits to something that you resort to escape the stress, and then it gets complicated to get out of this cycle. Okay, so if you're watching this right now and if you resonate with this that I just said, and you feel like you cope with stress by eating and drinking like a fool sometimes, drop me the word stress in the comments to let me know that this is the case for you too. And I want to start by circling back and talking about the reasons why. The reason why you are so stressed in the first place. And the reason why you are so stressed might have a lot more to do with yourself than what you might think. And there are obviously all those stressful characteristics that are part of the industry, that are part of the business, but also there are plenty of things that you can control that maybe you are doing it wrong, and not managing your time properly is one of them. And so I want to ask you, are you currently prioritizing your workload? Are you being efficient with your time and accomplishing enough? Or are you one of those people that spends 16 hours at the hotel or restaurant, and at the end of the day, you don't feel exactly like you've got that much done? Delegating is another one. Do you effectively delegate workload so you can focus on more important things, such as making decisions? Do you actually take breaks every now and then at your workplace? And I would say you probably make these mistakes in one way or another, but you probably aren't even aware that you make them, because most people, they are not aware that they do these mistakes. And the reason being is you are so concerned and focused on what's going on at the moment and on things that keep happening that you never really get out of that hole and ask yourself, is there anything I can do better right now in order to feel less stressed in my workplace? And so let's dive in and see what kind of mistakes you might be doing that aggravate your stress, and what can you possibly do about it. And the number one is time management. Okay, what's the point what's the point of spending 16 hours at your workplace if half of the time you're distracted with things that you shouldn't be? And I've often seen, I say this because I often seen colleagues and managers complaining that they can't catch a break, when in fact, I see that they are not organizing their time to sit down and actually do things that they need to get done when they need to, okay? And one thing is to have a long shift where you actually have to be there during that time. That's the shift that you need to be covering. Another thing is staying for longer without any necessity at all. So if you don't want to stay longer at work, don't spend half an hour gossiping here and there during the day, okay? Don't take 90 minutes having your lunch break. Don't scroll on social media during work, and try to plan your day in advance with a priority list. Because if you don't do a priority list, if you don't prioritize things properly and strategically, you'll discover that non-urgent things will always interrupt you from doing the important and what we call silent work that usually takes our 100% of our focus, okay? And this could be non-urgent random emails, could be non-urgent phone calls and requests, could be that the delivery guy walks in and wants to have a chit chat with you, and you don't want to be rude and send the guy away, so you kind of be there and you know, you're chatting a little bit, and all of this adds up, okay? And at the end of the day, you could have eliminated all these distractions and save yourself 1 hour or two that you can use to go home and relax, or that you can use to go to the gym and do all kinds of things, okay? And that leads me to the next mistake, which is delegation, okay? And this is another mistake that I see a lot of hospitality leaders do. And I've seen that pretty much everywhere I worked, all the hotels I worked, at least a little bit. And this is not being able to delegate. You see people that need to pass on tasks that they shouldn't really be doing, and they don't do it. And I think delegating is a skill. You need to get used to being comfortable, because especially at the beginning, it can be quite complicated when you're very used to doing a certain tasks, and because you're afraid of giving that task to somebody else, because you're afraid that that person won't do the job as good as you do, okay? And that's why it takes time for you to give that away. But the trick here is to actually train the person to be able to do it on their own. And once you are able to do that, and actually training, that's another skill on top of that. If you train the person to do the job properly, they will be able to actually, and sometimes exceed your expectation, and actually do that task even better than you, which in the first place might even be a task that you are not looking forward to continue doing anyway. Because as I said, it's important for you as a leader to focus on the things that you actually need to be doing, and making important decisions, and have that mental space, okay, to be free to actually, you know, get rid of that extra stress that you have on top of you. Obviously, people these days are understaffed and it gets complicated to delegate, I understand. But if you have that chance, to just by all means start training people to kind of start giving away small tasks that you don't need to be doing. And besides not delegating, there's a big mistake that can be included more or less in that area that I see managers doing over and over, is not allowing the staff to properly grow, okay? And just to give you an example, at a place that I used to work, not saying names here, a very, very nice, well-known hotel, none of the receptionists or front of house supervisors were capable of making any relevant decisions if they have no managers to report to around, okay? Because the main reason for this was because first, they weren't properly trained for that. And the other was that we had a rooms manager that was basically standing 10 hours behind the front desk, like a hawk, taking over very small tasks like check-ins and minor air conditioning complaints and all those kinds of things that, you know, this staff, they were all opportunities for the staff to actually grow and gain relevant experience. And part of growing is also making mistakes. If you're not making mistakes and learning from them, you aren't also growing. This is an important component. And therefore, like in this example, anytime he wasn't around, anytime that there was a problem that they needed to solve, like a minor problem, they wouldn't be able to do it themselves, because they were trained to be highly dependent on a manager, or in this specific case, on that person that was always around. And by the way, that person also did this mistake, which was his mobile phone was available 24/7, even when he was not at the hotel, which is not very clever, okay? Now, if the staff was well trained and they got their expectations right from the get-go, this wouldn't happen, and that individual would certainly be able to focus more on doing this proper job instead of being occupied micromanaging everyone. Because and also for the people who work there, imagine that they now apply for another job and they work in a different hotel where they are expected to handle minor air conditioning complaints, and they get there and they don't know how to do it. And I think it's really bad because you have this awesome CV in this excellent property, and then you get there and you can do it. And so moving on, if you're watching this, don't delegate, don't micromanage, try to delegate, don't encourage your staff to call you out of hours, very important. Unless there's an emergency, just create expectations. Don't call me unless it's an emergency. Learn how to try to solve your problems, make mistakes, report them back, and make sure you train them for those types of situations. Because telling your staff, hey, I'm going to shoot off, call me if there's any problem, that's wrong, okay? Don't do that. The third mistake, and this is more kind of a quick tip, is don't eat while you're working. And I say this because I've seen this over and over as well. People who are busy and they have a desk, they usually take their lunch and eat it at their desk, okay? So if you happen to be one of these people that usually you're at work and you take the lunch and you eat it at your desk, try and don't do that, because what happens is that when you're trying to have lunch, you receive phone calls and you're answering to emails and you're not really taking a break when you could have gave yourself like at least 20 minutes of break while you're having lunch. And those little breaks that you don't take, they will compound at the end of the day and they will create more stress, okay? So take a break when you need it. It's very important to give your brain that mental space. And I hope this is making sense so far. So if it is making sense so far for you, comment the word stress down in the comments below, and that lets me know that it is making sense. Now that we've talked about the things that you need to try so you can minimize the stress on things that you can control, it's time to find alternative coping mechanisms that are not eating and drinking like a fool. And how about this very, very simple one? Talk to other people. I know that it sounds very basic, but most people, in order to cope with anxiety and the stress, they will withdraw from friends and become socially isolated, which is a mistake. And then you'll absorb yourself, like with this solitude, you'll absorb yourself in your thoughts, and you go and do activities like on your own, Netflix and drinking, and that's not good for you, because actually talking about a stressful day or a stressful event with someone that's supporting you can be a very effective way to manage your stress. And most of you guys don't use this, and you should try and look for external support instead of taking all of your problems by yourself. I know most of you guys, we have this tendency in hospitality, because it's a tough industry. Hey, I have this problem, but I'll deal with it myself. I don't want to talk to anyone. I'll just man up and deal with my problems. And sometimes it's good to talk to people. It's good to let go. And if you have someone supportive that can support you with that, just by all means do it. And that will avoid that you shelter yourself with booze and junk food, okay? But also, and I want to just highlight this, be careful, because if you've been around people who complain a lot, like at work, for example, you always have these people that complain all the time. If they don't have any reason to complain, they will find one, either if it's the weather or the food at lunchtime. And do you ever feel tired when you spend a long time with this type of people at work or at home or whatever? And it's the same like when you go and complain about your day. So be careful, like just don't get home and just unload all that truck of problems on your partner or your wife or your husband or wherever, okay? So it's good if you can find a scapegoat to do that, some kind of friend that will take it in for you and vice versa. That's a good strategy to go. And again, that's why exercise is such a good way to unwind from stress. But anyway, another coping mechanism that can be good if used in moderation is computer games, okay? And I know that you probably didn't expect me to say this, and it's definitely not the healthiest thing that you can ever do, especially being in front of the screen for a long time. But if you don't go nuts playing the whole night, it can do things that are positive for you temporarily, and that will allow you to avoid booze and junk food and spending money on relieving stress with those unhealthy coping mechanisms, and it can also save yourself from the hangover the next day. Okay, and now to finish it off, I know that I've said you don't need cardio doing burpees to relieve yourself from stress, and you don't. However, exercise is hands down one of the best things that you can do for it. Okay, weightlifting is great, and when you're feeling stressed, instead of drinking, if you go and run 20 minutes instead, you come back, you have a hot shower, and the stress is gone like magic. I guarantee you. If you don't like ride, you can also go for walks and hikes. You can go for a swim, you can go for a cycle. It will have the same effect. Okay, if you don't like cardio at all, if cardio is not your thing, just go ahead and do a quick weightlifting session. You can just go for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and it will be already giving you a lot of benefits after a stressful day. And actually, speaking of cardio, I've just recently launched a movement club for free here in the community. So if you needed some accountability with your movements, if you need some accountability tracking your activities, whether that's running, walking, cycling, swimming, just scroll up this page and you'll see basically something that's pinned on the top. You got all the instructions there. You can just sign up and start moving a little bit. Okay. I will be able to see your activity too. You'll see mine. So that's pretty cool. And again, just wrapping up, firstly, focus on what you can control, improving the time management, delegate your workload, don't micromanage, and don't eat at your desk. Take that break when you have your lunchtime, take your break when you have your dinner. Don't eat meals at your desk, stop working for that period of time. And secondly, talk to people about your stress, okay? Open up and talk to people, and find healthier coping mechanisms to replace bad ones, okay? Because for each bad coping mechanisms, you can always find one that's healthier for you, that will help you out on that, guys. So if you didn't find that coping mechanisms yet, just keep looking for it. Try different things until you figure that out, because it's really, really important. It's gonna save your life, okay? From drinking and eating enormous amounts of unnecessary bad food and bad alcoholic drinks, okay? And that's it. Keep being awesome, and I will see you on the flip side. Thank you so much for listening, and if you found this content valuable, you can find additional help for free by joining the Hospitality Fitness community on Facebook at thehotelfit.com or facebook.com/hospitality fitness community. There's a ton of cool stuff happening, as well as a massive amount of free resources and information. So join us at the Hospitality Fitness community.